Chapter 9. Cassia came up again as Sawyer soaked the desert sands from herself. Cassia deduced that Sawyer liked a big bubble bath every night, no matter what she was covered in. Sawyer was glad to see her again. She enjoyed Cassia. They both shared a different level of maturity that girls their age didn't usually have. Although Sawyer had to admit Cassia only looked young, she was actually much older. "Well, how was your day?" Cassia asked as she lowered herself onto the ledge of the tub and kicked up her feet. "Overall, I would say it went pretty well. Liam is enjoying writing. I wasn't sure he would because he looks like he's constantly bored with everything. It's a nice change from his regular personality," she giggled. Cassia nodded understanding. "I think he is what they must have based the bad boy image off of. He's tall and lean and he wears black constantly. Plus he's drop dead gorgeous and looks bored. I'm sure every woman who sets eyes on him believes underneath it all is a sensitive guy just waiting to be loved." "Cassia, that's a perfect description of him," Sawyer exclaimed. "Do the other three and let's see if you have them all down," she begged. Cassia laughed and said, "Okay, I'll take a shot at it," and then she furrowed her brows for a moment in concentration. "Lucas is a sweet guy who can bring out his guitar at a party and make all the girls swoon and fall madly in love. He comes off as easygoing, but he looks so strong that the girls know he can protect them when he needs to. They feel both protected and understood by him because he's also a great listener and loves to cuddle," Cassia said. "Bravo, you are 2 for 2, Cassia," Sawyer applauded, and Cassia gave a mock bow. "Now Marcus is a consummate gentleman, and women are drawn in by how well he treats them. He is elegant and dependable, and women see him as the perfect mate, although most women won't approach him because his refinement makes them think they could never be worthy. He's adored by women young and old, and seems to be the perfect man," Cassia said. "You're nailing it. One more and you will have a perfect score," Sawyer prompted. Julius. "Last but never least, women see him as dangerous. He's the type of man they know they could never keep, but even a single night with him would be acceptable for them. He is the type of man women lust for and desire. They know they can never have his heart, but make fools of themselves trying. He is dark and mysterious like the spies people read about in novels," Cassia finished. That described them all perfectly. "Now tell me, Cassia, in your opinion, which one do you think will be my soulmate?" Sawyer asked seriously. "Are you sure you really want me to tell you? What if I'm wrong?" Cassia asked hesitantly. "Cassia, there's only a 25% chance you're right anyway. Your thoughts won't change the outcome, so please tell me what you think." "Lucas," Cassia said. "Why Lucas?" Sawyer asked. "Well, I would assume that soulmates would be of matching temperaments. You and Lucas seem to fit perfectly. You're both kind and thoughtful and easy-natured. I think of the four, your personalities match the most," she answered honestly. "Interesting. I guess I never gave much thought to what my soulmate's personality would be like," she admitted. "Why not? I mean, you've always known about him. Didn't it ever make you wonder what he would be like?" Cassie asked, shocked. "I guess not. I've always been able to feel him. I don't ever wonder what he looks like or what kind of man he is. I just feel connected to him and I can feel his sadness. All I ever think about is that sadness. It's like it is left deep inside of him, and I'm sure he has kept it hidden so long that he doesn't even realize it's there anymore, except very late at night. Sometimes he allows himself to think of it briefly. It only lasts a moment before he shuts it out again, but it washes over me. My thoughts of him are always the desire to comfort him and fill the void he feels," Sawyer answered. "Well, if that's the case, all four of them have plenty of sadness they could carry. What do you think a soulmate is then, if not matching personalities?" Cassie asked curiously. "I'm not sure. We each carry half of the same soul. I know that much. I guess you're right in thinking we should be the same if that's the case. The one thing I've learned, though, being a fae, is nothing is black and white. The world consists of different shades of gray. What if my personality is the half his is missing?" Sawyer wondered out loud. "It's a lot to think about, and you barely have 2 months to figure it out." "No, that's the best part. I don't have to figure out anything. On the full moon after my birthday, my soul will sing, and his will answer. I just need to get to know them, and fate has already decided no matter what I do. I don't have to kill myself trying to figure out who it is," she said brightly. "Does it bother you that you don't have a choice?" asked Cassia, thinking about the time when she felt like she didn't have a choice. Everyone asks me that, but the truth is no. I've watched so many people make choices about who they love. Then they have multiple relationships, searching for someone to truly love them forever. People make bad choices constantly and can go a lifetime never knowing real love. I have no choice to make, and I'm guaranteed true love, Sawyer said. You have a point. I made a choice once, thinking it was the best choice to make at the time. It turned out to be the single worst choice I've ever made, Cassia said darkly. Someday you will have to tell me that story, Sawyer said softly, sensing her friend's anguish. You can't look into my memories like you did with Brexley, can you? Cassia asked, looking horrified at the thought. I could, but I never would. I learned at a very young age never to access anyone's memories. It feels like spying, and I don't like it. In cases like Brexley, I only do it to be helpful, and I ask permission before I do. You may tell me your story someday, or you can choose not to. I wouldn't make that choice for you, though, Sawyer said seriously. You can feel our feelings, though, right? Yes, only in a general way, though. When you spoke of your choice, I felt shame and agony from you. Usually I feel a warmness coming from you, an elusiveness. From Hunter, I feel hostility at all times. I can even feel Brexley has warm feelings towards me, but she tries to mask it when Hunter's around, Sawyer said. That's exactly how I feel, Cassia said. I'm glad to know I also get to have you as a friend when this is all over too, Sawyer said. I believe we will be lifelong friends, Sawyer, Cassia said, smiling. Hunter was agitated and pacing the room. She was picking things up and setting them back down. Liam was sitting in a chair by the fire, sipping a drink and waiting for her to blow. So how was your date today? She finally spoke. We both know it wasn't a date, but if you insist on calling it that, then it was wonderful. Thank you for asking. In fact, Sawyer gave me the horse I've been riding, he answered calmly. It was a date, she said fiercely. You most certainly are not keeping anything she gave you either, she said bluntly. I am most certainly keeping the horse. After I spoke to Lucas about it, he called and made arrangements for a stable to be built at our country house. He is even considering getting a horse himself. We used to be skilled equestrians in our younger days, Liam answered. So you and your brother made this decision and you didn't bother to ask me about it before you did? She asked incredulously. Why would I ask your thoughts, Hunter? It's my home I share with Lucas. You have no say in what we do at our home, he said bluntly. Because I'm your girlfriend, that's why, she screamed. You should always be worried about what I think and how I feel. Hunter, I can't keep up with how you feel. I do what I do know that I don't care what you feel about my brother and I building a stable. It has nothing to do with you, he said callously. That's fine, Liam. You just walk around flaunting a gift another woman gave you. I will just sit back and watch as he steals my boyfriend, she said angrily. No one is stealing me. The horse has always been mine, and it's not like she's giving me anything I didn't already have, he said, starting to get angry now. You don't think I see what she's doing, giving you gifts? And that thing she did with Brexley? She's trying to turn you all against me. She helped your friend. You should be grateful, he yelled at her now. Grateful? I'm losing the people I love, and you want me to be grateful? I'm not going to just keep sitting by and watch her steal the people I love, Liam, she yelled back. The only thing you're losing is your mind, Liam screamed. Lucas could hear them clearly and cringed. He hoped Sawyer wasn't hearing any of this. Hurricane Hunter was on a rampage, and although Liam claimed to hate it, Lucas believed he loved it. After their raging fights, they would make up and be more in love than before, at least for a few weeks until it happened again. He had never understood why Liam had changed Hunter. She had been the first since Julius and Marcus had killed all their changelings so long ago. Lucas and Liam had been enraged when it happened, but were powerless to do anything about it. The brothers were older and much stronger, and in the end, Lucas had come to understand the wisdom of what they had done. It had been easier to remain undetected when it was just the two of them. Lucas knew an old group of men called the Alliance had recently formed in the Americas. It was an ancient group that had been around as long as their kind had. They were in every country and had recently come to America. They hunted for all men and women who had been changed and killed them. They were skilled and had vast resources and would outnumber them all. Lucas and Liam had narrowly escaped them before sailing for America, and that was why the group had come to America to follow them. They now kept a low profile and avoided their detection, or so they had thought. It was, in fact, how Hunter had met Liam. Hunter had been dating one of them, and when she saw the file on Liam, she instantly fell in love. Who knows what she was thinking, but she came and warned Liam. They quickly fell in love. Liam loved when women were infatuated with him, but things snowballed quickly. Before he knew it, Liam had become so infatuated with her. She was as wild as him, and before Lucas knew what was happening, Hunter had been changed. Lucas left for their country home soon after the change, while she and Liam stayed in the city. Hunter was easily bored and wanted the nightlife of the city. He and Liam hadn't spent much time together in the last year. He liked to be as far away from the drama of the two as possible. He had been surprised when he found out that Liam had allowed her to come here with him. He had hoped it would be the break his brother needed to be free of her. He had just hoped the rest of the guests couldn't hear what he could. Marcus and Julius could, of course, hear, as Marcus's room was directly above Liam's. They were sitting across from one another, sipping a drink by the fire. You know, for as old as he is, one would think he wouldn't enjoy so much drama from a woman, but he seems to delight in it, Marcus mused. I believe he was the type of man who probably enjoyed them before his change. From what I understand, he was a young English lord and enjoyed his time at court immensely. Different times produce different results in a man's nature, Julius answered. Good point. I remember the times we attended court in many different kingdoms. They do like to indulge and entertain themselves in the strangest ways, Marcus agreed, and then said, Where did she take you today? The Sahara Desert. It was quite amazing. Her powers are remarkable. What about you? Did she beat you at chess? Julius asked. No, but she played very well. I suspect she's smart enough to win one eventually, he answered. I have only seen her powers when she displayed them for everyone else, but so far I'm impressed. It makes me wonder what her full power will look like. Did I mention she's indestructible? Julius said, almost as a side note. No. In what way did you learn this? Marcus asked, surprised. She told me to try to bite her and held her wrist up to me. When I did, it was like trying to bite into steel. I'd been worried about so many of us being in the house. It would be a threat to her, especially Hunter. It seems my fears are unfounded, Julius answered. Fascinating. I look forward to seeing what else she can do, Marcus stated. As do I, said Julius. Sawyer once again went over the day as she lay in bed. She was happy that Liam had been reunited with his horse. The horse had always been aloof and standoffish from the rest of the herd. She knew that for any soul to truly be happy, it had to have a connection with something else. It had never connected with any of the staff or the other horses, and she was glad to know it had finally made a connection. Lucas and Marcus were both easy to spend time with. They were both genuinely happy to spend time with her and get to know her. The time she spent with them was both comfortable and always went by quickly. She thought she had gained some insight into Julius today. She believed he experienced every emotion of anger. She didn't know if it started that way before the change or after. All she knew was that it was exhausting. She knew she had to be patient with him no matter how trying he could be, because he couldn't unlearn it overnight. At 4 a.m. she woke with a start. She could feel his pull and felt hopeless. She got up and sat in the window to look out at the moon, wishing she could reassure him. At the same moment, he stood staring up at the night sky also. He wished that he could be with her for all eternity, but he had convinced himself it was impossible. She was eating breakfast in a small nook off the kitchen the next morning when Hunter and Brexley approached her. She looked up surprised as they slid into chairs across the room. Good morning, ladies. To what do I owe the pleasure? Sawyer asked. Good morning, Brexley answered brightly. How are you feeling, Brexley? Sawyer asked. I feel incredible. I don't remember if I thanked you yet, but thank you for everything you did, she answered. There's no need to thank me, Brexley, she said warmly, and then turned to face Hunter, and her tone became less friendly. What can I do for you, Hunter? She asked bluntly. Well, I was thinking that maybe later we can hang out and have like a girls' night or something. We haven't really got to spend time together yet and really get to know each other, Hunter said in a fake tone of cheeriness. She considered it. She knew Hunter didn't have friendly intentions in mind. She knew that they would have to work things out eventually, so she decided to be the better person. That actually sounds fun, Hunter. Let me ask Cassia, but I'm sure she won't mind, Sawyer answered, dreading spending time with them without Cassia, even if she was trying to be a better person. Oh, well, we really don't know Cassia that well. Maybe it should just be the three of us, Hunter said almost too casually. What a better way to get to know her then, right? Asked Sawyer. You're right. That's the idea for tonight, Hunter said fakely. Then it's settled. I'll have the staff prepare something for us tonight, and we can meet in my room around 9 p.m. if that works for you two. Perfect. We will see you then, Hunter said and stood up. Brexley immediately stood up next to her and they left. Sawyer made a mental note to ask Cassie about tonight. Her day followed the same pattern as the previous days with Liam and Lucas. It was when she entered the library to see Marcus that her day changed. She was surprised when she came in and found Julius waiting for her also. Good afternoon, gentlemen, she said curiously. Good afternoon. You will forgive me for asking Julius today, but we have something we would like to discuss with you, Marcus said apologetically. We would both like to ask you something after much discussion and decided we should do it together, Julius said. Ask away then. I'm curious as to what question would make the two of you nervous, she said, smiling. When we were changed, the woman who happened upon us, dying slowly, laying amongst the dead in our regiment, was described as fair. She speaks very little and only in our original Latin. Julius found her living wild in the woods about 20 years after our change. We continue to take care of her to this day as we owe her everything. She allows Cassia and I around her, but Julius is the only one she seems to truly trust. We are wondering if you might be able to help her like you did with Brexley, Marcus explained. We know it's a long shot, but whatever torments her is beyond our abilities to fix, said Julius. We have tried throughout the centuries, but to no avail. We keep her housed and fed, so she doesn't have to go out into society, and yet she is still prone to outbursts and fits. She prefers the dark and solitude, Marcus added. Sawyer considered the request and was quite surprised by it. The brothers, she was sure, did not ask for anything lightly, and their compassion for this woman touched her heart. Their reputation made them seem heartless, and yet they were describing a selfless act. Of course I will help her. Shall we go now? She asked. Yes, if it's possible. We think only Julia should go, though, as she might be overwhelmed by all of us, Marcus said, surprised at how easily she agreed. That's fine, she said. Thank you. We hate seeing her suffering for so long, Julie said. You're both welcome, and I assume Marcus is willing to give up his time today, since this is where you're asking, she asked, looking at Marcus. He nodded in agreement. She turned to Julius and said, Shall we then? She led Julius outside to the garden and then asked, What is her name? Necia, he answered. I think it is wonderful that your family has cared for her all these years, she said, and then waved the door into existence. Now take my hand and close your eyes. Think of her where she is at. When you picture it, squeeze my hand, and we will walk through the door, but don't open your eyes until I let go of your hand, she instructed. All right, he said, and closed his eyes. She waited for a few moments and then felt his hand squeeze hers. She directed his energy towards the door, and they stepped through together. When they entered, she saw the opening of the cave, and he opened his eyes. The cave was high atop a mountain in a very dense forest. Julius led her into the mouth of the cave, and they walked at least a half a mile deep into it. I'm sorry she prefers to be hidden, said Julius as they walked. It's all right, I can feel her fear from here. How terrible it must be to be afraid for so long, she said. Deep in the cave they came upon a thick steel door, and Julius tapped on it gently and spoke softly. Necia, I have a friend I've brought here with me today. He twirled a heavy combination lock and slid the bar across to open the door. Inside the room, soft candlelight glowed, and Sawyer could see an ancient couch. Books lined one wall, and an art table with supplies had been set up for her. A bed was set up against one wall, and huddled in a far corner was Necia. She had her arms wrapped around her knees and her head was lowered. She had long black hair that was matted and hung over her face. She peered at them through her hair. As they approached her, she tried to shrink back into the wall even further. Julia spoke in soft tones. It's okay, Necia. This is Sawyer. She is here to help you, he said in Latin. Sawyer approached softly and offered her hand. Hello, Necia. Julius looked at her surprised. I didn't know you spoke Latin. I speak every language, Julius. It is the gift of the Fae, she said softly. Very slowly, Necia unclasped her hands from her knees and then tentatively reached out to touch Sawyer's hand. Sawyer had already let the silver reach out and gently touch Necia. The silver light was calming, and soon both hands reached for her. Sawyer gently helped her to stand and took her to the center of the room. She softly started moving the hair from her face so she could see her. "I am here to help you, Nicia. Will you let me help you?" Sawyer asked her in Latin. Nicia nodded yes and wrapped her arms around Sawyer's waist like a small child, and Sawyer spoke gently again. "Nicia, we are going to the beginning now, and you will see what you fear. I will take your pain, and you may close your eyes if you are frightened. I fear we may see many terrible things before we are free," Sawyer said. "Isn't it just one thing like Brexley?" Julius asked, confused. "No, there are so many that her mind is shattered like a mirror. Nothing is in order, and they are free-floating. I see her mind had broken long before the change, and she had already begun to sink into madness. She has been hurt in so many ways," she said to Julius, and he noticed the tears falling down her face. She waved her hand, and they were standing in a burning village in the dead of night. Screams filled the air, and flames were everywhere. A little girl around the age of 3 was lying on top of a dead mother and crying. A man from a raiding party came and violently toward the child from the body of her mother. He handed the child, now screaming, to a man on a horse, and Sawyer froze the memory there. She took the crying child from the man on the horse and whispered to her softly and rocked her until she calmed down. When the child had calmed, instead of returning her back to the memory like she had with Brexley, she instead handed the child to Nicia. Nicia held the child close and rocked her. Sawyer waved her hand again, and they were on a ship. People were chained together, and it was sweltering hot. The sweat just poured from the people chained together. A small girl about the age of 8 was chained to a wall. One of the crewmen came and started to unchain her. She started kicking and screaming because she knew what he was about to do to her. He threw her over his shoulder laughing and started to take her up the stairs. Sawyer froze the scene and gently removed the girl from the man's grasp. She knelt down and enveloped the girl into her arms. She also whispered quietly into her ear and then took her over to Nicia. Nicia now sat down and took both of the girls onto her lap. Julius watched in awe as Sawyer waved her hand again, and now they were in a Roman kitchen. A girl of 12 was being beaten by another slave as a bowl of fruit lay broken on the floor by her feet. The girl was bleeding from her nose and her ear. She did not cry. Instead, she just stood mutely as the blows rained down on her. This was making the older slave angrier, and she just kept hitting her harder. Sawyer froze the scene and led the girl away once again to Nicia. Nicia handed her the toddler to hold, and then held her also. The scenes kept repeating. So many acts of violence had been inflicted upon this woman in her lifetime. With every scene, a child of a different age was brought out and given to Nicia. None were returned to the scene. Julius had started to understand they were all Nicia at a different age. In the middle of it all, Sawyer saw a memory that Nicia had held as her only happy memory. The day that a soldier had given Nicia an apple in the marketplace. Sawyer understood immediately why Nicia had saved Julius that day. The soldier bore a striking resemblance to Julius. When she was finished, she turned the room back the way it had been. She watched as Nicia embraced all the girls around her, and they all clung together in comfort. Julius stood beside her, watching the scene in front of him. "What now?" he asked Sawyer. "Now I give her the one thing no one ever did, a choice. She has had all the pieces of herself back together again. She was so abused so badly that they all broke off into separate pieces. It was the only way she could deal with her pain. I have put them all together again and taken their pain. She must decide if she wants to let them all make her whole again, or if she wants to remain with them like this," Sawyer answered solemnly. The girls all sat crying to one another, and Nicia looked up at Sawyer and said, "How can I ever thank you?" Julius was surprised to hear her speak clearly for the first time. "I do not require thanks. I'm only sorry I couldn't have helped you sooner," said Sawyer sadly. Nicia turned her gaze to Julius now. "Julius, you have been so kind to me and taken care of me for so long. I am forever in your debt. A lesser man would have destroyed me instead of caring for me," she said. "You saved my life and the life of my family. You've given me centuries. My family owes you our lives," he said sincerely. "You have a choice now, Nicia. Tell me what it is you want to do," Sawyer asked her. "May I choose to stay with them?" Nicia asked shyly. "Of course. You understand it's not in this realm, though, she asked. What realm will they go to? Julius asked concerned. They will stay in the Fey realm. Mother will watch over them and make sure their souls heal. When they are healed, their energy will be released into peace. Will I never see her again? Asked Julius frantically. You will, Nisia said, smiling and grabbing his hand. They all gathered in the doorway so Sawyer could walk them into the Fey realm. She had first returned them to her house so Nisia could say goodbye to Cassia and Marcus. As they said their tearful goodbyes, the 3-year-old gripped Cassia's finger. As they were getting ready to leave, Julius asked Sawyer, will we go to the desert when you return? No, I am giving this to Mother. It is very powerful and only she is strong enough to set it free, Sawyer answered. It was then that Julius noticed the paleness of her skin and the dark circle under her eyes. I'm so sorry, Sawyer. I didn't think this could hurt you. It hasn't, Julius. Please don't worry. The weight of it is enormous, and the blackness of it is draining, but I'm not hurt. When I return, Mother will have taken care of it, and I will be as good as new. Be glad we helped her, she reassured him. I did nothing. Only you helped her, he said, feeling guilty. You took care of her for centuries, Julius. You were her protector. If you hadn't taken care of her and kept her alive, all her energies would have scattered. Her soul would have never known peace. You did so much more than you could ever imagine, she said. She walked into the Fey realm with Nisia and the girls. Mother and many other Fey came and led them all to the warm spring. The Fey helped them all to bathe while Mother and Sawyer went to the desert together. When the ball became too big for Sawyer to hold any longer by herself, Mother held both her hands, and they held it together. As the sandstorm raged around them, taking from them the blackness, Mother stood in awe of Sawyer. No other Fey could have done what she did today, not even Mother herself. They could take away a single pain, but never so many, and none could reunite them like she had done today. Her power was growing just having her soulmate near her. Mother didn't worry about the enormity of her power, just her ability to control it as it was growing so rapidly now. She would have to keep a closer eye on her until her birthday and her soul sing. She knew her soul's mate was the only one to calm her when the storm raged. They returned and burned each of the dresses the girls wore, and their own dresses as well. The blackness could infect everything. They bathed next to the girls, and when they were all clean, they were given new clothes. Each girl had been washed and their hair combed out. When she could finally see their hair, it looked like black silk, and she saw how beautiful Nisia really was. She guessed that Nisia was from Persia, and watched as the girls danced around the fire with the Fae. It was good to see all of them smile for the first time. As they sat next to the fire watching the girls, Nisia spoke. Thank you again. I never thought I could see them again. It was an agony missing them, she said, nodding at the pieces of herself. I'm glad you're back together, Sawyer said. The Fae said that no one could have done this but you, Nisia stated. Mother could have done it also, Sawyer said humbly. They told me the story of you, how lucky you are to have been born into so much love, Nisia said. I'm grateful every day that I was raised by these beautiful women and given so much love and guidance, Sawyer said, looking around gratefully at the woman who had shaped her entire life. You are lucky, but soon a man will love you perfectly. Few women are lucky enough to experience that. I hope it is Julius who is your soulmate, Nisia said. Why is that? Sawyer asked curiously. Because under all of that meanness and rage he's known for lies the gentlest soul I have ever known. As broken as I was, he was patient and kind always. He deserves to be loved for once, Nisia said honestly. Sawyer looked at her for a long moment and said, Thank you for telling me about his true self. With that, Sawyer got up to leave. She hugged Nisia and all the girls before she noticed the smallest one had crawled into Mother's lap and fallen asleep. Thank you for helping me today, Mother. I couldn't have done it without you, Sawyer said, and leaned down to kiss the old woman on the cheek, and then kissed the sleeping child on the head. Oh, my sweet girl, what you did today was amazing. Now go and seek your true love, she said and winked. Julius waited for her just outside the wall nervously. When she returned, she was wearing a new dress and was radiant. He let out a sigh of relief. That went quickly, he said. Only for you. Our time is different in the Fey realm. I've been gone for hours, but only minutes passed for you, he answered. How is she? He asked. She is well. Once she was cleaned up, you could see what a rare beauty she is. She will be fine now, Sawyer said reassuringly. Marcus and Cassia came and joined them. Julius told us what happened, but we're not sure he explained it correctly, Cassia said. Well, the easiest way to explain it is that Nicia, from a very young age, experienced a traumatic event. As she grew, instead of healing from it, she kept experiencing trauma and abuse. Not long before her change, the man who owned her and his friends abused her so terribly one night, everything in her mind shattered that night. She existed from then on with pain she could not control and one faint memory of a single kindness that a soldier did for her one day. When she happened upon Julius that day, his face reminded her of that kind soldier, and she saved him. That's why she only ever felt comfortable with Julius. In her mind, he was the only person she could remember that had ever been kind to her. There were so many traumatic events that when I went into her memory, I had to gather them all back together. It was all of her spells at different ages, and I gathered them together again. Her soul had to be whole again if it was to be healed. She rests now with the Fae, and eventually they will help her reunite the parts of herself together again. How awful. I can't imagine living a lifetime with only one kind of thing happening, Cassia said, horrified. It's why Mother left this realm. The cruelty that people are capable of inflicting on one another, Sawyer agreed. We owe you a debt, Marcus said. No debt is necessary. My soul rejoiced in helping her, Sawyer said. Then she turned back to Cassia and said, Now, a change of subject. We've been invited to a girls' night. And I won't go without you, she told her. Well, that sounds absolutely dreadful, Cassia said in all seriousness. Which is exactly why I need you, Sawyer said. Cassia frowned for a moment, but she loved spending time with Sawyer, so she finally agreed. Fine. Sawyer hugged her. My room at 9 p.m. Then she turned to Julius and Marcus. If you will excuse me, I have to get things ready, she said, and started up the stairs. Cassia came early and found Sawyer's room was packed full of tables. There were tables full of makeup and nail polish, and she had the staff bring in a large television and lots of movies to choose from. Bottles of champagne were chilling, and she even had a table full of desserts and popcorn. Wow, what is all this for? Cassia asked, impressed. Not sure. I've never had a girls' night, so I don't know how to host one, Sawyer admitted, feeling a little stupid. To be honest, neither have I, but it looks great, Cassia explained. Hunter and Brexley showed up a few minutes late. Cassia was looking at the polish, and Brexley explained when she saw the makeup. She kept picking things up and letting out squeals of delight. Cassia was staring at her like she was an alien. Hunter, come look at this lipstick. It's totally your color, Brexley explained. Hunter walked over to the table and looked, but she shook her head no and gave Brexley a dirty look. She then turned her attention to Sawyer. What did you do, Sawyer? Rob a Sephora? She said and laughed. The heat of embarrassment quickly rose in her cheeks. I wasn't sure what to do tonight, so I had to pick up some stuff. I used to do this when I was young and had sleepovers, she admitted. Hunter turned her head slightly, and in a sweet voice she said the meanest thing. No one liked you when you were little and you had to buy them? How sad. I think it's great, said Brexley unexpectedly. You can keep anything you want. It's what it's for, Sawyer said. To Brexley, and to her delight, Brexley squealed again. Well, then let's do each other's nails and have a girl talk, said Hunter, finally getting to the real reason why she was here. What is a girl talk? Asked Cassia, suspicious. Hunter rolled her eyes and answered, It's where we talk about boys we like and the girls we hate. Won't that be hard if they're in the room? Asked Cassia blatantly, and Sawyer laughed without meaning to. Brexley looked confused and said, The boys won't be in the room. She's talking about us, stupid, Hunter hissed at her. Cassia stared at Hunter directly and said, Only one of you. Sawyer felt the tension and tried to change the subject. Why don't we just watch a movie, she suggested. No, I want to talk about the guys, Hunter said. I'm not comfortable with that, Hunter, Sawyer said more firmly. Oh, come on, let's hear about who you're starting to crush on, Hunter kept pushing. She said no, Cassia interjected, her tone a little bit more menacing. Hunter stared at them both for a long time. Sawyer was sure she was going to keep pushing the subject, and Sawyer finally understood why she had wanted to hang out tonight. Hunter's expression changed completely into a mask of friendliness, and she said, You're probably right. We can still do each other's nails while we watch a movie, Brexley suggested. Sure, Brexley, Hunter said, and turned towards her friend. Cassia gave Sawyer a knowing look. The next 2 hours, the most agonizing of Sawyer's life, and she was pretty sure they were for Cassia also. Brexley and Hunter did everyone's nails. Before she was turned, she had wanted to be a nail technician. She really enjoyed doing nails and she thought she might have a knack for it. She still liked to practice, but since the change, didn't have any long-term goals anymore. She thought she needed to start thinking about it again. They all sat silently during the movie and waited for it to finally end. It had become uncomfortable for everyone, and when Hunter found out she wasn't going to get what she'd come for. When the movie finally ended, Cassia let out an audible sigh of relief. Brexley took almost everything from the tables, and Sawyer had to have the staff bring a cart for her. When the door finally shut behind them, Sawyer felt relieved. "Promise me we will never do that again," Cassie exclaimed. "I promise. And at least it's finally over," Sawyer said, laughing. Cassia didn't return her laughter, though. "You need to be careful of Hunter. She is dangerous, and she has it out for you," Cassia warned. "She doesn't worry me. She can't possibly hurt me," Sawyer said, trying to ease her friend's mood. "There's more than one way to hurt someone, and she's adept at all of them. No offense, Sawyer. You may be physically out of harm's way, but a girl like Hunter will find other ways to hurt you. She's like a caged animal waiting for the perfect time to strike. You may have power, but you are naive about girls like her. Luckily you have me, and I will keep an eye out for you," Cassia said, seriously concerned. "Thank you, Cassia. You may keep an eye out, but honestly, I'm not worried about her. I mean, what harm can she actually do?" Sawyer would look back on this conversation and realize she should have given Cassia's warning more weight. She would find out soon enough what Hunter was capable of.